The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
You don't need to have watched up until this point to know what's going on here. This is the good guy. This is the bad guy. And they are about to duel. Sound is half of filmmaking. The audio in audio-visual. You see, when you take a physical camera and you film something with it, what you're recording is the real world.
This is cool.
And as inhabitants of the real world, you might know, pretty much everything in here makes a sound. That is, in fact, an understanding so innate that audience members might not even notice sound when it's done well. But in its absence, you've upset me! It's sorely missed. Sound doesn't exist purely because we expect it to, though. Sometimes, oftentimes in fact, filmmakers will add extraneous sound that wouldn't necessarily be emitted by what's being recorded, like the sound of fists flying through the air. Or leather tightening around the body. These sounds don't exactly exist in these contexts, but they're added to accompany something that we can see on screen. Going back to my example from earlier, the duel beneath Bespin. By now the audience is familiar with the activation of the lightsaber. The punch and the ongoing hum communicates the power of the sustained blade. Vader's, on the other hand, hisses like a snake. We already know that the saber is strong. Now it's telling us who it belongs to. We will come back to Star Wars, mark my words. But before we do, I have to address an area of sound design I find particularly fascinating.
Guys, you're all gonna think I'm crazy, but it feels like a metal man is coming.
You see, no matter how cool they are, animations is drawings. And unlike the real world, drawings make no sound of their own. So, in this example, all of the sounds, from the tactful breathing of the combustion bender, the compression of the metal boot, even Sokka grabbing his boomerang, had to be created and recorded apart from the visuals they accompany. And of course, Avatar being a fantasy series, there are phenomena in this scene with no real sonic reference. What does an avalanche of stones being telekinetically thrust up a hill sound like? What about a tsunami being sharpened and thrown like a spear? What if it collided with a psychic explosion? These are the questions the Avatar team had to ask while designing their sounds, and the answers were incredibly impactful. But there's something else. Something that you might not realize is also a sound. I told you we'd come back to Star Wars. Perhaps there is nothing so emotionally effective as music. One of the strongest tools in a filmmaker's toolbox. Musical motifs and stings, especially, can capture an audience's emotion one moment and release it again later. Here's another example from Avatar, Azula's famous chime. The Avatar team wastes no time associating this sound with the terrifying Azula, using it to emphasize everything she does, from bending fire to just existing. Over the course of the show, the chime becomes synonymous with Azula.
We're on our way.
Wait, who's that?
So when the Kyoshi warriors come before the Earth King, and the audience and the characters expect it to be Suki,
The Kyoshi Warriors.
how our hearts drop when we finally see them and hear. Now, do excuse me if you haven't seen Avatar and don't share my fondness for Azula's iconic chime. That's fine, you should watch it though. But you'll definitely recognize at least one of these examples. And just for fun, let me throw in something I did for my animated short film Proposition Red, which you can watch on my film YouTube channel, Jolly G-Man, if you feel so inclined. I made a simple piece of music, a 3-note progression that plays all throughout the film. Here it is as the main character's love interest finally comes to talk to her. What are you doing? And here it is again when the antagonist comes to assassinate her. So, as you can hear, sound in all of its forms has a tremendous impact on film. An emotional impact, you might say. I know I certainly would, as I have been deeply emotionally impacted in a way that going forward, using just what we've discussed today, I hope to similarly impact others. And, my fellow film majors, I hope that you will too.